to have Angelo Caruso joining us, and Michael is going to give us some wonderful ideas around growing clubs and around how to market clubs and how to really look at how we grow and how we extend our reach over the next little while. So if you could now go to your speaker view, you would probably be seeing Holly right now. But Michael, welcome to District 7820. We have some folks from other districts as well, but we're thrilled that you're here with us this morning.
My pleasure, Louisa. Good morning, everybody.
So Michael, you've been talking about marketing and public image and how time, and you've spoken to, I wouldn't even want to guess, you may not even be able to guess how many Rotary clubs that you've had the opportunity to speak to, but I know that thinking about how to grow clubs is a big part of your work. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's going on in the world of growing Rotary.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe a bit of background would be useful. You know, everybody has an opinion these days about how to do Rotary right. And it's sometimes politically incorrect to say this, but not everybody's opinion is equal. I've had a fantastic opportunity to be on the Rotary speaking circuit for 2 decades now. And so because I get to visit with Rotarians from all over the world, I get to see what's really working. And I also get to see what's not working. And I can tell you the copycat mentality in Rotary, some people call it borrowing, is alive and well. People borrowing ideas all the time in Rotary. And if we can achieve one thing in our call today, it would be this: we only want to borrow things that are evidential. They're actually working. And so I like to look at numbers. And so you're going to hear some numbers from me today because if I just tell you something's working, you might copy it because I'm your speaker today, but I want you to copy it because it'll work for your club, right? And I never talk about things that might work. I talk about things that absolutely work. And so that's my perspective, Louisa, and perhaps this is what's getting me so many gigs speaking with Rotarians, because I value your time and I want to give you high-end information. You asked about growing clubs, and let's start with a basic premise, and we can have conversation today. If y'all want to just interrupt me at any time and get something off your chest, let's do it. I think that makes for a more interesting session. Thumbs up if you agree with me. And if you disagree with me, thumbs down. So far, so good. One interesting premise. I saw a statistic the other day in Rotary Mag, in the Rotarian actually, and it asked how many Rotarians want to grow their club. And I was looking at the statistic, and I was guessing at what the statistic would be. And I thought it would be, well, 100%, of course. Who doesn't want to grow their club? And the percentage was well below 100 of people that actually wanted to grow their club. I started to test this in live events, everybody. I would be at district conferences, zone events. I speak at a lot of pets. I was supposed to do 5 pets this year before COVID started canceling events. And I would visit with Rotarians and ask them this question: how many of you would like to grow your club? And invariably, not everybody in the room raised their hand. It was fascinating. And I had fun with this. I would say, I noticed not all the hands are up, and then a couple more hands would go up, but I had to convince them to do it, right? And then I discovered some of the people that had their hands up were actually fibbing about it, that they don't really want to grow their clubs. And you might disagree with this, but I think it's a fascinating conversation. I think if Rotary really wanted to grow their clubs, if they made a full-time job of it, if it was a life or death situation for Rotarians to grow their club, I think we'd get it done. And yet a large percentage of Rotary clubs are not growing at all. They're flat or they're declining in membership. And so it raises the interesting question right at the baseline, Louisa, is, are we really interested in growing clubs? And here's the punchline, everybody. I think that if your club grew by 20 members this year, let's say you got a bunch of 30-somethings and 40-somethings in the club. Let's say your club got a large percentage of females all of a sudden, or people of color, or just maybe business professionals that wanted to run things a different way. I think your club would irrevocably change in ways that you never expected. And I think some of you would like the old club better than the new club. That's my feeling.
Mm.
And we can talk about this today if you want.
Oh, I think you're right, Michael. I think there are a lot of people who talk about wanting to grow, but it's within a context of and stay the same. And so certainly we don't have any clubs that would have grown by 20. We have clubs that have done 10 or more, and we talk about the need to grow at least 15% to stay the same, just
Yeah.
with the regular attrition and so on. But that idea of growth and change is a bit scary for some folks.
Yeah, and it's not like blaming or shaming or anything like this. This is human nature. We do this all the time with stuff. We say we want to do stuff, but we never actually do it. We say we want to lose 10 pounds, but we never do it. We say we want to start going to bed earlier so we can get more sleep, but we don't do it. We say we want to get a better job, a job that's more rewarding, but we just don't leave the one that we're at, which, by the way, you have to do in order to take the better job. So I think, if you're really going to look at the four-way test, the first tenet of which is it the truth? If you really honor the truth, you have to look at what exactly is happening here and have open conversation about it. So I think that's the first step. I'd be interested to hear from people in comments about whether or not they actually want to grow their club and the impediments to doing so. Like maybe you want to grow your club, but people in your club don't want to. Or maybe you're outvoted, or maybe there's some people in your club that are kind of running the show. If that's the case, type it in the comments and we can fold you into the conversation today. Now, if you do want to grow your club, here's the next step, and it's painful. You actually have to do things differently than you've done them up until now. I mean, nobody ever grows their club accidentally, right? At the end of the year, when you ask, when you do the district conference and you give out the awards on a normal year, you have a conference, and you give out the awards for the club that's grown the most. They never did it by accident. They never said, "Oh, I don't know, we didn't do anything differently," and all of a sudden we were plus 20. It just doesn't happen that way. So membership grows on purpose, and that usually means somebody has to own membership. Ideally, it's the membership chair. But what we discover now in a lot of these smaller clubs is that they're so thinly staffed that they actually don't have a membership chair. And that's not a good sign. They also, by the way, don't have a public image chair. I take interest in that this year because starting July 1st, I will be your zone public image chair for 28. And I am stunned at how many clubs don't have public image chairs. I'm stunned at how many districts don't have public image chairs.
Well, and I think, Michael, that reflects the fact that we do have a lot of clubs that are smaller than clubs in the past have been. So we have a majority of clubs who would be in that 20 to 30 range, quite a few that are under 20. And so you often have committee of the whole, or you have a roster that doesn't allow all of the positions to have somebody specifically assigned from the club's perspective. And so that is a challenge when we don't have the number of people, or we're recycling people over and over to make that happen.
Right. And there's a workaround for this. And then I want to say hi to Christina Ennis, who plays a role in public image for the zone this year. Morning, Christina. Get ready to unmute, Christina. We'll have a quick conversation. So there are workarounds for small clubs, because if you're in the downward spiral, it's really hard to get out of it. And so I want to share with you a couple of tricks for this. If you have a small club, say 20 or less, and it's hard to get different people to take on different tasks. And by the way, if you have the same person doing something for 5 years in a row, there's a good chance they've already pulled all their rabbits out of the hat. They don't have any new techniques or strategies in the 2021 year if they've already been doing it for 5 years. You're going to get what we call the same old, same old. They're doing their best, but you're going to get what you got last year and the year before. And again, that's just, there's an old saying in farming that fruit on the tree is either growing or dying. And I feel the same way about clubs. You can't stay the same. If you're staying the same by default, you're dying. So when clubs tell me we're holding our own, we're stable, I don't buy it for a second. Those clubs are in trouble. That's a harbinger of things to come. So this idea of the workarounds involve having someone else champion public image for you. Maybe you don't have somebody that can that can chair public image for your club, but you do have a Facebook king or queen, somebody who's active on social, and they can be your voice. Maybe they don't have time to chair. Sometimes, you know, we scare people off. Can you be our public image chair? And they're like, no, I can't do that. It's too much work. But they're on Facebook 10 hours a day. And that's really what a large part of the job these days, you know. So let's handle some comments, and then we'll talk about some more workarounds. Let's see. Let's do Christina first. By the way, Christina is an assistant Rotary Public Image Chair for Zone 28, and I can't wait to get working with her. Good morning, Christina. She says
Good morning.
She says in her comment, she just sent an email to the whole district asking people to identify public image chairs. And out of 44 districts, only 11 have public image chairs listed. We're halfway through June, ladies and gentlemen. And
this is for next year, mind you. She's looking at the numbers.
There's
for next
15
year.
for this year.
Yeah.
What's that?
There's 15 identified for this current year and
Okay.
11 next year so far. So
All right, so you've had a massive improvement. Now you're 15 out of 44. So one of the things Christina and I and the team are going to go to work on is better communication. And one of the workarounds we talked about earlier is we want you to lean on the district. And if the district is letting you down, which I know your district does not, but sometimes we have, you know, problems with the district communication. Sometimes there's personality issues. Let's just be real. Then you can lean on the zone, right? Somebody's doing their job, and you got to find the person that's doing it and lean on them. When I was asked to be public image coordinator for this year, they said, we want you to name 10 assistants. Well, I didn't know what that number meant. You know, how many do we have now? How many did we have last year? So I went to the zone newsletter, and we only had 2 the year before. So we've already increased the number of assistants by 10. I took another step this year. Every assistant on the public image zone team this year has a specific talent. They're either really good at Canva or spreadsheets, or Brad Hollett's really good at video. We've got another person who's a fantastic connector. That's all he does all day is introduce people to each other. And so this team is, I hope, going to be more valuable than teams of the past. Not because it's a competition, but because we want to do a better job this year than last year. And how will we know at the end of the year if we did a better job? Numbers. Let's see. Jane Simmons says they have, 12. Okay, back to that. And Kim W. corrects 13, maybe 13 public image chairs.
Increasing the number of people signing up and loading information about their public image chair. So it's increasing as the day goes on.
Maybe as the call goes on.
The call goes on.
It says, does the purpose and mission of the club come first? People come to share your mission. Bruce, unmute so we can chat. People come to share your mission if they agree. So by purpose and mission, Bruce, are you talking about something different than Rotary ideals? Are you talking about something that's specific to the community?
Well, I'm talking, I think about, first of all, Rotary ideals, yes. But what is the, what in the club, in the community? What does the community need? What are we doing as a Rotary Club to meet that need? And I think if we get that down and it becomes public knowledge, then I think membership will come if they share our mission.
Okay, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I'd like to fold something else into the mix here, and that's something that they call in marketing a value proposition or value prop. You know, because you might easily convince yourself that your Rotary Club does good things in the community, and because you do good things in the community, of course, membership's going to grow. But there's all kinds of problems with that statement. You know, it's first of all, it's not logical that just because you do nice things in the community, membership's going to go up. What if nobody in the community knows you're doing nice things?
Okay.
What if you're the best kept secret in town? You could be completely fulfilling the local mission statement, but your marketing's in the toilet and nobody knows how great you are. And we see that a lot. There's a lot of Rotary's the best kept secret in town kind of a language going around. But I'm with you 100%, Bruce. And I think it starts, by the way, with the club experience. Like, this is a very unusual forum that Louise has set up for you, this coffee hour. And I'm kind of sad that it may be ending, you know, due to, you know, COVID ending. Maybe there's a way to keep this going once a quarter where we can have this kind of coffee and conversation, because it is a really unique format. but we need to be able to provide something that people can't get in other organizations. They cannot get what Rotary offers in Kiwanis. They can't get it in an Optimist. They can't get it from the Knights of Columbus. They can't get it from the Chamber of Commerce. They can only get it from Rotary.
Okay, just a very quick follow-up, though. We're not United Way. The whole question of us giving our money to other charities is something we seem to debate all the time. People give money to Rotary so that they're supporting Rotary causes. And I think that's something we need to think about, that's all.
Yeah, I think that's part of the value proposition in Rotary. You know, we're married to polio until the very end, you know, for better or worse, just like in marriage. And nobody else flies that polio flag like we do. So there's a great example of that. Absolutely, Bruce.
And I think we're seeing a lot more. We're seeing a lot more conversation around cause-based clubs and clubs that do have a very specific mission and cause that they take to their community. That does become their value prop. And we've talked a lot about value prop in our training this year. Our focus has been on what is your club's value proposition, and that's something that we'll continue to look at. I like Roger and Joanna talked about. Do you mean growing in numbers or in ideas? And when I think about Grow Rotary, I think about all of those things: growing in service, growing in ideas, growing in innovation, growing another club, growing in numbers. But I'd be interested, Michael, on how you take that one.
I think all growth is good. Imagine, and we started a Facebook group, everybody, that you're all welcome to join. Christina's in it, a lot of people on the call are in it. It's called Get the Word Out Now. And if you just search it in Facebook and join, you're going to get ongoing tips for these very things: growing your club. How about raising more money for the foundation? That's a kind of growth that we can talk about. How about getting more attention for the greatest service organization in the world, right? Because in advertising, they call those units of measurement, they call them impressions. And if you doubled or tripled the amount of impressions your local club got this year, membership is likely to go up, you know? So growth is good in almost all areas. Of course, we're talking about virtuous types of growth and not problem growth. But I think too, Roger and Joanna, that all roads lead to membership, because when you can grow membership, what else are you growing? You're growing your talent. You're growing the number of people that can bring you ideas. The number of ideas is growing exponentially, right? You're growing the body of skill set that's available in your membership. So I think that's 100% well done.
Can I add something to my question? Well, it wasn't a really question, but I've been a Rotarian for half my life now. So I joined at 27, I'm 54. And I can tell you it was a really long orientation period, right?
How many years?
Yeah, well, it's at first I was, second female, like only, anyway, it's 27 years, so that's since age 27. And it was, at first it was like challenging and, hey, well, why I was a Rotary Exchange student, how come we don't have a Rotary Youth Exchange here? And as it turns out, they did, but it's like all the people in the club no longer had kids that age, so it had kind of died out, as it often, it's probably come and died about 4 different times in our club since I've been there.
Yeah.
And I do find it's easier to attract members than, like, it's often the people that are dropping out are the ones that have only been there a few years, right? Like, you either sort of get the orientation, get to know people, like it, stick with it,
Yep.
Or you sort of join. Why did you join? Maybe you thought that you were going to make more of a difference and you're not, and, or maybe you get transferred out to another community, but it just seems like we either need to grab people quicker or get them involved,
Yeah,
like
it's a
run
bunch of
with something.
Joanna, it's a bunch of things. We have to find people that are a good fit in Rotary, because a lot of times we're so desperate for members, we just bring that person in, and you hear people commenting, well, isn't it great we have a new person? But if the new person isn't a fit for the club, they're not going to be with you long. Yeah. And it seems like an obvious thing to say, but my own club has onboarded a bunch of people that really weren't fit for Rotary. Right away, they started asking questions about dues, which meant that they didn't have enough money to pay dues. Now, if Rotary is going to be a hardship for you, it's never going to work out. It has to be like this, kind of a hand in glove kind of a feel to it, tongue and groove, right? Another thing, Joanna, is I think we take too long to engage Rotarians. I tell presidents, club presidents, that a great technique is to, when you do the installation, and I've been to a ton of installations where the new member's not allowed to speak. I'm like, oh my God, you've got to let them talk and say something at their own installation, right? Otherwise, they're just in the back seat. If they're in the back seat when they join the club, it's hard to get them in the front seat. And so I tell presidents, get that new person to announce which committee they're most interested in when they install. Now they're in front of the group and they say, and the president actually prompts the question, or the sponsor prompts the question, which of our Rotary committees are you most interested in? And the person says, well, I've always been passionate about youth, so I'm looking at serving on the RILA. And now they've said it, and it's public. It's like that old adage that if you want to lose weight, you go public with your thing. You start telling everybody, and now you're like committed. It's important. Christina, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to speak much. Let's get your opinion on something, and then we can get back to the comments. You're new to this. You're getting a new lay of the land at zone level. What are your observations about membership? And you're also, by the way, of a different demographic. What is your opinion? What do you think?
On membership?
Yeah.
So my experience in my club personally, we've had a lot of organic growth in membership over the last couple of years. A couple of my friends have actually joined, and we're at about 50-50 male and female in our club at this point, which is awesome. But I personally post on social media about Rotary all the time, and I get so many inquiries from friends who are just interested in A, what Rotary is, and B, since I obviously love it so much and they are my friends, they want to know more about it because I'm interested in it and I'm getting so much out of it myself. So I don't think it's just posting on your own club social media pages, but it's about sharing your story. And instead of just sharing, if you're going to share a post from your club, put your own text in it and tell your friends why it's important to you and why it's valuable to the community. There's
an old saying in marketing that you should tell people what's in it for them. But a lot of times we're just, and I know we're not like this as Rotarians, we're mostly humble people, but we do a lot of what I call pigeon posting on Facebook. You know what pigeons do, right? And we fly over a group page and we drop our stuff and then we fly away. We don't even check to see what the comments are after we do it. We just want to brag a little bit or show off a new graphic or announce next Tuesday's dinner just in case you want to come, right? But there's no engagement. There's no real communication. There's no back and forth. And I'm with you, Christina. I think that personal endorsement, not only what you're getting out of Rotary, but what, if I'm communicating to someone, what that other person is likely to get out of it. And what I think happens with Christina's energy in particular, everybody, and some of you as well, is that they see how happy Rotary makes her, it energizes her. They see her passion. And then they think to themselves, what's in it for me? They think, I could have what Christina has. And that's when they start taking an interest. That's when they show up to your wine tasting. That's when they show up on your Zoom call. That's when they come to your physical meeting. I think there's a lot of that at play here. Let's move down to Duncan Conrad. He says his club is not unlike a lot of other clubs. Many older members, difficulty finding board members. The attitude is, Duncan, unmute or let us know how many members you have in your club. The attitude is, I don't have the network. Oh, I thought he was going to say net worth. I don't have the network to bring in a new member. And that's possibly, Duncan, because maybe you're retired or you don't have social circles like that, maybe? Tell us more. He's tried a new Rotary approach, but only a few members actually brought people out to the sessions. Duncan, where are you?
Okay, I'm here.
That's right. I didn't know who you were, but you are retired. Am I correct?
Semi-retired. I run a retirement tour business, which is not doing very many things these days. Yeah. So the reality is that in many, many clubs, we have a lot of people who've been around for a long time, and their networks in terms of being able to bring new members in, at least the general feeling is that their networks are not there. So they haven't introduced anybody to Rotary in a very long time, and the routines in the club have been set so that it's been the same way for a long period of time. For example, I switched from one club to another, and in this particular club, a couple of years ago, when I first went into to their meeting and I sat down, one of the members said, "No, you can't sit there. That's where so and so sits."
Yeah.
You know, that kind of attitude that you see periodically in clubs that have been around for a while. So it's a challenge to get. We have some younger members. Unfortunately, they are now bringing a few younger people in. But we're a club of about 36, 37 on paper. And then we have, in reality, probably about half of that number that that actually do anything in terms of
Yeah.
while
So,
we're here.
guys, thank you, Duncan. Some workarounds. This is just like this unspoken rule. You can take it to the bank. The oldest people in your club are often the worst recruiters. The oldest, when I say oldest, the tenured people in your club, the people that have been in your club the longest, are often the least effective at bringing new members. We can have a beer sometime and talk about why that is. The antithesis, the opposite, the solution. The newest member, it's almost counterintuitive. The newest member of your club is more likely to bring in members. Can anybody guess why? They're more excited. It's new, it's fresh. They have what Christina has right now. Rotary, oh my gosh, Rotary, the greatest thing, you see? And the old members, the 20-year people, me, 30-year people, some longer than that, like, if they didn't recruit anybody for you in the last 10 years, the odds of them recruiting somebody this year are pretty slim. Thumbs up if you agree with me. I mean, it's okay. We just have to talk the truth. And that's just how it is. So it's counterintuitive. When you get a new member, don't think that the new member is not useful in that way. The new member is extremely useful in bringing friends and visitors to the club. And you should cater to them in that way. I think it's absolutely true. We also know that, I think that's a good workaround right there. Lean on your newest members as the people that are going to recruit the best for you. Fred Wright says the other piece of community service is to find out what the community really wants. We talked about this already? Yeah, I think we covered that in another comment. Thank you, Fred. Back to membership, our current topic. Kim says, I think membership and PI go hand in hand. However, it's challenging if those committee chairs are not on the same page. Yeah, Kim, unmute, please. Many Rotarians do not understand or see the value in PI. How do we as Rotarians do a better job educating our Rotarians on PI and then having all Rotarians help us support the brand? Okay, so I think we have a problem with, we named it wrong. We call it public image. Where are you, Kim?
Right here.
Good morning. How are you?
Not too bad, you?
I'm great. Thanks for being on the call today. I think we misnamed public image because public image is like, well, I'm going to communicate to everybody outside of, not only outside of my club, but outside of Rotary. But what I've discovered is there's a very big Venn diagram. You know what a Venn diagram is, everybody. It's the overlap, right?
Yeah.
That a lot of people need to hear the same message. In fact, I can't think of a message I would send to the outside world that I wouldn't send to my own club members. So why do we call it public image? Why don't we just call it image? Kim, what happens when the membership person and the public image person disagree? What could they possibly disagree on?
Some people are more open to change and I guess, using social media, websites, whatever it may be, to spread our awareness and be very inviting. And then some membership chairs that I've worked with in the past have been a bit more like, oh, but we got to vet them and we got to pick the right meeting to invite them to. And you can't just have anyone walk through your door. And
Yeah,
why not? Like,
that's a great example, and we see it play out in other ways. I'm from the Troy Rotary Club, everybody, and I'm just telling you what happens. You know, I'm not ashamed of my club, but I know a lot about my club, so I share what's working and I share what's not working, and they all know it, right? This is how we learn. And so we had, for the last few years, a program chair. Do you call them program chairs in your part of the world? The person that books speakers, thumbs up. Yeah, the person that books speakers. And the program chair wasn't on Facebook, still isn't on Facebook. So the program chair, the person responsible for promoting the speakers, doesn't have access, or even a will to access the best way to advertise speakers. How do you think he did on promoting speakers last year? Yeah, not very good. We actually had to get a second person to help with promotion because this gentleman just wasn't a Facebook guy. So Jim Collins wrote a book a while back called Good to Great. And some of you may have read the book, but the very first sentence of the book is fabulous. Good is the enemy of great. It's a pretty powerful way to start a book. Good is the enemy of great. And Jim Collins said, you not only have to get the right people on the bus, but you have to get the right people in the right seats on the bus. And if I had a do-over in my club, by the way, I wasn't in charge of the decision, but I would never have the program chair be a person who wasn't on Facebook. That would disqualify the person. Funny story. A couple years back, I posted on Facebook that I thought that if you weren't good on Facebook, if you didn't even have a Facebook account, you probably shouldn't become club president. Oh my God, I got hate mail. People said, oh my God, you wouldn't let somebody be president just because they don't have a Facebook account? And I said, my comment was always the same. First of all, take a breath. I'm not in charge of anything. I don't get to decide anything. This is my opinion. But what happens when the club president's not showing up on social? I'll tell you what happens. It looks like somebody else is driving the bus. And you've seen it, maybe in your club, maybe you've seen it in your district. Luis is all over social. But I know you've had governors that did not post to social. They weren't on social. And everybody asked all year, where's the governor? And I'm not saying the governor didn't do anything. I'm just saying this is the playground everybody plays on now. And I know I'm talking to some people who are not Facebook people. And you're valuable Rotarians. And if you're not into Facebook, it's cool. I still love you.
Does your club also email everybody? Like, we get a lot of emails from presidents and from Louisa, and our club doesn't tend to. We have a great, Jim Goit is super at technical and are promoting within, but yeah. I don't think we're posting like, oh, the speaker today is this. Is that what your club does?
Yeah, we email for sure. I think probably the question behind the question is, what's best? What's the best way to go? And the answer is whatever's working. And the problem is Facebook works for a lot of people, but it doesn't work for some. A lot of people are religious, anal retentive about their email, and some people don't answer their email at all. Again, my club wants to put somebody on the board, and I don't know how the vote went. They want to put somebody on the board who has a reputation for not using email. How effective of a board member can he be if he's not receiving minutes, if he's not receiving documentation in the primary modality of communication in 2020? It's an interesting question.
I think That's a really good point in terms of the technical skills of people. And obviously the demographic of Rotary is all over the place in terms of who is and who isn't. But we're talking a lot about Facebook, which obviously I think is pretty important. And I've been encouraging and reminding and asking people to like things and share things, because it doesn't do any good if it's just within your own group and people aren't sharing it beyond and doing something with it. But can we go just a little bit beyond that, Michael? And what else, if you think about the people that are on this call or on our Facebook Live who are incoming leaders, they've got 2 weeks before they're going to be on the starting line. What else should they be thinking in terms of marketing and building that whole image piece? Because I agree with you, it is image, not just public image. What else should they be thinking about today when it comes to how they're going to move the needle in that area?
I think people who are about to take office in Rotary on July 1st should be thinking about, I think they should be thinking about goals. What is it that you're going to do differently? How will you measure it? How will you know if you're successful? I hear this a lot in Rotary as a goal. As a goal now, listen carefully, Rotary should be more fun. Well, it sounds great. How do you measure that? How would you ever know if you were more successful? I'm in favor of it, by the way. I vote yes. How are we going to know? And by the way, what's fun for somebody who's 70 years old may not be fun for somebody who's 35 years old. What's fun for somebody who likes to spend a lot of time outdoors working physically on a project may not be fun at all for somebody who is more of a spreadsheet expert. Now, we get into trouble when we try to be all things to all people, but let's try to do stuff this year, everybody, that's achievable and measurable and will make us feel good. I think these are the 4 things that we should do next, Louisa. The first thing we need to do is shore up communication. We've already touched on that. If your email list is crap, by the way, are you all using Club Runner or DACDB? Which? Club Runner, thumbs up? Okay. So in Club Runner, there's a field called Friends of Rotary, right? And if your Rotary Club has 30 people, your Club Runner should have 1,000 people. Your Friends of Rotary. These are people in the community that have ever visited your club. Please tell me you're capturing emails of the people that visit your club. These are the people that liked your Facebook page. These are people that came to your wine tasting or any event in the last 3 years. And you're collecting those emails, even if it's a business card fishbowl, and then somebody keystrokes them into the database. You can even get a scanner that scans the card and drops it into the database. So when we have a way of communicating with people, then we can communicate that value proposition. But if you don't have a communication method, you're done. I mean, it's really hard. So shore up communications. Second thing for the new people is we need to get really clear on our goals. I've talked about this already. Goals are numbers. And we can do it with what we focus on the wrong thing sometimes. We focus, for example, on membership. Are we +1 or +3 this year? What you should be measuring is visitors. Why? Because nobody ever joins Rotary without visiting Rotary. And in my part of the world, you have to visit Rotary 3 times. Same in your part of the world? They have to come to a club meeting 3 times to join, don't they? So you should be counting how many visitors you get, and you should be really interested in how many come twice. Because if they don't come twice, they're never going to come 3 times. And how do you get them to come twice? You bribe them. I know clubs that they don't pay for your lunch the first time. They pay for your lunch the second time, man. Because the first time you got to come to the table. You got to come to the lunch table, right? Or the breakfast table. And the second time, we buy you lunch. That's interesting. So again, by measuring. And how about event attendance? This has been a strange year, but what if we could increase the attendance at your district's most important event next year in 21, which is the district conference? What if we could get 20% more people to come to the most important event of the year for the district? That's measurable. If we can put it on the wall, everybody can aim at it. It's not that hard to do. My gosh, if you just got the 4 officers from every club to come to district conference, your attendance would boost. Just the 4 officers. If they bring their spouses, it's a bonus. They're partners. So it's pretty cool. The third thing we need to do is something, I'm hearing this term a lot now, called outward programming, which is this idea of bringing in people that you might not normally bring in. Zoom has been really good for this because you could have almost anybody speak at a Zoom meeting like this. But this topic today, even though I'm a professional speaker and I talk about all kinds of stuff, my big thing is I teach presentation skills. But I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking about Rotary today. So in a sense, this is kind of the same old, same old. I mean, I hope it's better than most Rotary programs for your sake. But I think that when you book somebody, for example, one of Rotary's big initiatives, 6 areas of focus, is peace and conflict resolution and prevention. You all know this. But it is stunning how few conversations we're having about race in Rotary right now. Stunning. It's almost absent. I'm starting to see some now, a few. But for an organization that can be critically criticized for not being diverse, and Rotary International, by the way, says, well, we don't really touch that kind of stuff, what's happening in Minnesota, because that's Minnesota, and we're an international organization. And some part of my brain understands that. But why the district in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, isn't talking about this? Why the Rotary Club of Minneapolis isn't talking about it? I'm scratching my head. That is relevant. That's what people want to hear about today. That's a problem that needs addressing. And I don't mean to be jumping on the bandwagon about race. It just happens to be race right now. Could also be about police brutality. If you don't want to put the race lens on it, let's just talk about police killing people in the street in the middle of the day. So we had the chief of police come in to talk about it. You have a chief of police in your city? He needs to practice on somebody, because pretty soon the news is going to put the microphone in front of his face and he's going to be on television. He might as well practice with the local Rotary Club. Tell him that. Tell him that. Tell him he's get ready for his spotlight, her spotlight. So the first 3 things, there are 4. We need to show up communications. We need to get clear on our goals, and goals are numbers. We need to do outward facing programming. That means you get speakers, like there's an argument, there's a debate in Rotary about, who do we program, who do we do our programming for? Do we do programming for our existing members or somebody else? Well, if you only have 12 members in your club and you're programming for those 12 members every week, you're making a huge mistake. You need to program for the people that aren't in your club yet. So if Christina had just joined my club, I don't know how old Christina is. I'm guessing she's younger than me. If Christina had just joined my club and I wanted to get more Christinas, I would book, and forgive me, this is not profiling, it's just common sense. I would book female speakers that might resonate with Christina. I would book speakers that talk about issues that she's interested in, right? And then guess who would be coming to the club to visit? More Christinas. You follow that, right? Thumbs up if that makes sense to you. I need some feedback here. Yeah. And it's okay if it doesn't make sense to you. I want to hear from you too. But I think this is what's called outward facing programming. The fourth one is this idea of the better club experience, where people come to Rotary and they have a sense that this is special, this is unique. So this speaks to the idea of why people leave. Somebody said it earlier, why people leave so soon. They join, they're around for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and then they exit. You've all heard the numbers. Why does this happen? I'll tell you why. It's because Rotary sounded really good on the way in the door, but after they got there and lived with it for a little while, they weren't getting what they thought they were going to get. And that's the club experience. So how do we make that better? One way, and we call it in the speaking business, moving the microphone around the room. And there are easy ways to do this. Your club president should have in their talking points, they have a template and they read from the template, the schedule every week. And they should say, every week they should mention 5 Rotarians' names that are in the audience and tell people how great they are. Because people love that stuff. And it should be sincere. So you're involving more people. You're letting more people speak. We get a lot of, forgive me, king presidents, queen presidents, right? And they get the microphone and they never let go. I know club presidents that are also doing their newsletter for the club. They're also the Interact chair for the club. I mean, how can you ever be a successful president if you're doing all these other things? But they can't let go. They don't know how to delegate, or there are other issues. Sometimes only 5 members in the club, which we've talked about. But I think these are the kinds of things that make it a better club experience. So those are the 4 things, Louisa, I think that we need to get working on right now. In fact, I'm doing a video. I have a YouTube channel, everybody, and there's a Rotary playlist. If you like to learn through videos, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you click that silver bell, you'll be notified when new videos are posted. And I'm about to post one, the 4 things Rotary should do next. And it's gonna get thousands of views because everybody's wondering what to do next. When are we gonna meet physically again? Are we gonna keep doing Zoom? Is Rotary relevant anymore? Will people have lost interest after this world-changing event? Nobody knows. Some people are scared. Let's go
That's
back
great, Michael. And so we'll make sure that we share that, because those are the kinds of things that have videos like that we've been suggesting that clubs use for programs when they don't have a program speaker. And particularly in the world of Zoom, it's very easy to suggest that members watch a video in advance and come prepared to talk about it, or to have some sort of special discussion. So thank you for that. Those videos will be very helpful. One other thing, because our time is marching on, I wanted to just ask you one more question before we open it up. And that is, we had talked about needing to think about fundraising. That's a big one right now, as we're looking at coming out of a pandemic, but still have a year ahead of us where a lot of fundraisers have been hampered. What are your thoughts about what clubs can be thinking about when it comes to fundraising as we sort of move on to our new normal?
Well, if the fundraising is going to be done online, which it seems like we're just going to get euchred into that. There's just going to be no way around it. I think we have to get clever about how the donation happens and what we're offering for the donation. Certainly, holding your hand out to a bunch of people that have lost their jobs is not going to work. I mean, I've seen some callous asks, ASKS, where, hey, could you donate to Rotary because we need your money? And you don't even know you're asking somebody who's been furloughed. I mean, that's got to stop. That's just insensitive. So you got to know the people's situation. You got to know the market. You got to know what the market will bear. There are 4 types of money, everybody. There's big money, small money, fast money, and slow money. So before COVID, you could go get big, fast money, because if you had a good Rotary-friendly corporate sponsor in town, they'd stroke a check for $500 or $1,000, because that's how we were back then. But it doesn't work that way right now. Now maybe we should be focusing on small, fast money, and in unique ways. So just a donate now button on your website's probably not going to do it. But what if you had a concert? What if a local band did a concert and you charge $10 for the ticket, and you could get 100 people on the call? It's interesting. And by the way, they don't have to get dressed up. They don't have to go someplace, endanger their own health. They don't even have to technically like the band. You see what's happening here? Psychology is, we're doing something nice for you. This band is worth $10, and you support Rotary, so you're going to pay us $10. Some people, this is almost bizarre, but you have to think about how it really works. A lot of people, Louisa, will pay the $10 and not even attend the concert. We see that happen all the time with live events.
We're seeing some very creative things. I know one club's doing a delivery of a lobster dinner for Father's Day, or whatever it might be, that we're doing some creative things. But it's going to be a challenge for the clubs that have had that fast big money, either from a big dinner, a big event, a rib fest, or a big auction, or whatever it might be. And so we do have to rethink how our service is going to look. So from my perspective, the people who are incoming leaders have to be putting a lot of thought into strategic ideas around membership, around how they're going to measure their success, and around how they're going to pivot when it comes to their funds that are going to be available to them.
You bet. I noticed Najam and Louisa, help me keep track of time. Najam says, and I can stay as long as you want, guys. If some people need to peel off, I understand. Najam says, and this is a great question, should someone be asking why people are dropping, like in the form of exit interviews? Am I saying your name correctly, sir, ma'am?
I don't see that one now, but just give your comment anyway.
Yes, you are saying my name right. Thanks, Michael.
I'm not a fan of exit interviews, sir, because I think the toothpaste is already out of the tube by that point. I'd rather know why they're thinking about leaving. Can you appreciate the difference?
Sure.
And so what you watch for, and the BOD needs to do this, the board of directors, because they're seeing people becoming delinquent in dues, or they're watching attendance drop off, or they're, if you have a small club of 20 people, you could actually do a quick physical on everybody in the club at the BOD, at the meeting, and say, well, we haven't seen so-and-so in a while. Does anybody know anything? Our club used to do this on occasion, and we'd talk about it and give it lip service, but no one would actually find out. Now you can text the person during the meeting and get an answer from them. Where you been? And then you tell everybody, look, he's fine. He's just, his wife's been sick. You see?
That's
so
great.
We need to close up, I think, that feedback loop, everybody. By the way, speaking of feedback, Louisa puts a lot of energy into putting this event together. One way you can get more energy from it and more steam is ipso facto. So if you like this session today, you should post on your district page, or even in the Get the Word Out Now page, my group, that you got a lot from this. You don't even have to mention my name, but mention the idea that you got. Mention the idea, the best thing that you heard, so that we can help more people. I could easily be giving this program to all the districts in Rotary, not just yours. I mean, I'm privileged to spend the time exclusively with you, but everybody could use the message. So let's become these, let's all develop our megaphones. We've got a few more comments. Are we okay, Louisa?
Yeah, we'll keep going for a little bit more. We sometimes break for a little quiz and for breakouts, but I think this is important. We'll keep going today with some of the questions that people have posted.
Okay, great. Let's see, Valerie. Is it Valerie? Let's see. Fred Wright asked, is it because the most tenured are most averse to change? A lot of times, yes, Fred. Christina says she finds it hard to get people engaged on social. Yeah, well, not, social isn't for everybody. And by the way, a lot of people are big on Facebook, not so big on Instagram. And so you got to get people where they live. You got to find out how they want to communicate and go with it that way, I think. Valerie Bobick says, I think some new members are aggressive in getting their friends and acquaintances to join because the club lacks members. Yeah, like Amway. Remember when Amway used to try to recruit you? Hey, do you have just 30 minutes? I can't tell you what it's about, but it'll change your life. And they got a lot of people signed up that way, but I think people are too sophisticated anymore. Valerie, where are you? So Valerie, I think I teach something called the reverse presentation. So if I'm sitting with you and my ultimate goal is to tell you about Rotary, I don't start with that. I actually ask questions about you. How's your family? Are you healthy? Did anybody get sick during COVID? Remind me what you do for work, Valerie, because I can't remember. And do you like it? Is it your dream job? What else? Where are you going on vacation this year? Tell me more. And I get her to, share about herself. And then once I know who she is, that's the pitch that I give her about Rotary. If Valerie says she really loves to travel, I talk to her about international service, which is one of the 5 avenues of service in Rotary. Now I'm connecting with Valerie, you see? If I think Valerie doesn't like to travel, why on earth would I talk to her about travel? So it's called the reverse presentation. Get the other person to talk first. Trinda, agreeing with Valerie, cool. The chief of police in what is NL? Is in Rotary, that's great.
Newfoundland and Labrador.
Well, you left out the F.
That's the official 2-letter abbreviation. So that's real.
What that is. I'm getting to know Canada now because of my new title. So thank you for that. Adapting successful events of the past will be an interesting thing for the summer year, the upcoming year. Absolutely. Fred Wright says, consider asking prospective members why they did not join. Sometimes we have to consider starting a new club. That's a huge one, Fred. And you got to dig deep. The technique is ask why 5 times. Because if you ask them once, they always give you the same excuse. And I know you've heard it. I just don't have time. Or my work won't let me. It's always a deeper issue than that, you know. Why didn't work let them? Specifically, was it a time issue? Because then the new club thing comes into play. Yeah, I can't get out during the middle of the day. Well, let me ask you a question. If there was a breakfast club in town, would you join Rotary? Now you got your first member. So try to get them to tell you what it is exactly, not approximately, so that it's actionable. You can't do anything about people that keep saying, I don't have time. By the way, that comment says that you don't have a good value proposition. Whatever you offered them isn't as good or valuable to them as what they already have going.
So I know from a time perspective, I appreciate you're willing to stay, and I hope other people will with questions, but I'll just ask, Holly, were there any sort of clear questions that are in the chat that we don't want to miss as we're scrolling through that you're seeing? Anybody we should be calling upon to make sure we give them an opportunity?
I don't think so. I think Michael's done a good job picking up on all of them.
Okay, so I acknowledge and appreciate if anyone does have to leave as the hour comes to an end, but I also appreciate that Michael's willing to stay and will continue to go through. And if people do have specific questions, feel free to raise your hand if there's something you want to ask at this point so we don't miss that. And Michael, I appreciate you going through the comments if there are others that you want to speak. And I see Olaf is doing that right now. So unmute yourself, Olaf, and let's have your question.
Okay, I've been listening to this whole issue of how do you attract and recruit and retain new members to a club. Our club is a small one in a small city that has lost its radio station effectively a couple of hours a day, no newspaper, very difficult to communicate to the rest of the city. So we rely on new members coming in or visitors coming in and perhaps recruiting them. But when I joined, I don't think anybody ever really pursued me after I joined to find out what my particular skills or abilities were that might fit a club need. And I'm wondering whether a more concerted effort needs to be made to make new members feel like they can indeed contribute in a meaningful way to the club rather than simply show up lunch meeting after lunch meeting and chit chat and socialize, but not get used.
You're exactly correct, Olaf. You know what we do in Rotary? Terrible habit. Somebody joins the club and the president says, well, we need a treasurer. They don't ask the other person what they're good at. I've known clubs that have had bad treasurers for 3 years because the person they asked didn't want to say no. It's crazy. It's lunacy. So you ask the other person, Olaf's exactly right. What are you good at? What do you like to do? What
skills or talent inventory?
What's that?
You know, just conduct a skills or talent inventory. You're right. What are you good at? What do you want to do? What can you do? What does your past profession, I'm retired now, enable you to do? Okay, sorry, I've rattled on.
And sometimes, Olaf, they want to do the opposite of what they do 2,000 hours a year. So when the accountant joins your club, don't assume automatically that the person is going to be your next treasurer. They might want to do something away from the numbers. But I think that's that tongue and groove model that we talked about earlier, you know, that you're matching the skill set to the person. It's so important, and why we don't do it just blows my mind. I saw another question about if websites are so important, why won't RI provide Club Runner to all clubs? And that's from Alex. Where are you, Alex? That's probably a question for RI. I don't know the answer to that. I know that it would be very expensive for them to buy. And by the way, they think probably that if the club pays for Club Runner, they're more likely to use it. What we're finding now is a lot of clubs are so small that the Club Runner expense is too much for them. And then that creates a problem. Now we don't have a website. So let's dig
that RI is looking at a tool that RI would provide. It's in the early stages, but they are looking at that now within the, there's a COVID task force that's underway, as well as the Future of Rotary Committee, both at the board level. And that's one of the things they're looking at. But of course, Club Runner is not the only provider. There are other companies that do this too. So there's a competitive thing of suppliers who do this for Rotary. So it's a bit of a tricky balance to make sure that Rotary looks at it, either something internal that they do or what partner they might go with. But it certainly is a question that comes up often, and it is being looked at.
Yeah, well, let's look at a deeper question, because this is useful too. Where are you, Alex? Unmute so we can chat. So one of the things that I like to look at with websites, Alex, where are you, sir? Or ma'am?
I think he may be gone.
He might be working, or he may have had to go. Yeah, he's probably working.
All right, so let's answer the question anyway. So in Club Runner or any website, you can do something called analytics, and you can actually find out not only how many people visit your club website, but which page gets visited the most. And with good analytics, you can actually find out how long they stay on each page. Would that be valuable information to you? I mean, why on earth would you put a lot of time and energy into a website if nobody's actually looking at it? A few years ago, we did a little test in our district that the district newsletter was only being opened 26% of the time. 26. Do you know how hard it was to accumulate all of that information, curate it, proofread it, publish it, send it out, and only 26 out of 100 people were looking at it? Now, we didn't stop doing the newsletter. We went to work trying to get them to open it. One of the problems was the subject line. Every week it said newsletter. That was all the subject line said. Every month. And you know, after 2 months, I would stop reading it because it's just a boring subject line. It should have said, like, what's the hottest item in it? You know, congratulations to the Rotary Club of Brighton, or congratulations Brighton, or Rotarian of the Month. Wouldn't you just open it to see who the Rotarian of the Month was? It should be in the subject line, because that's what gets people to open your emails. And of course that would drive the traffic then to the website. You guys asked such great questions today. Fabulous.
I'm guessing our newsletter is not too much higher than that, because it's only a certain group of people that are interested. But that's a good point and something to think about, because there are small numbers of people who really want to see that monthly newsletter, but then there is the majority of people who do not open it. And so that's a resource question. And we're fortunate that we've got a fairly large public image team now at the district level to divide that up. But it's an ongoing conversation, is how much time and effort should be on the internal communication versus having our PI team focused externally.
And what about cross-pollinating? So you know, we think in silos sometimes. Here's the newsletter, which nobody reads, and here's the Facebook group, which everybody reads. How can we get the newsletter content over to Facebook? It's totally possible, but we don't think.
Then that's an area we absolutely need to look, because with limited resources, you have to be sure that you're maximizing the leverage from those folks, because it's hard enough to get the volunteers to do some of these things. We want to make sure that what they're doing is having the best possible reach.
You bet. Still 29 people on the call. Let's answer another question from Joanna. She has such great questions. Let's see if I can find it again now. It had to do with, let's see. Is it gone? I'm looking in comments, everybody. You can see them too. Oh, she says, do we ever fire people in Rotary anymore for non-attendance and non-participation? Or are we okay with Rotarians by dues only? I'm okay with it, but I don't think it's a good sign. You know, and I thought where you were going to go with this was, do we fire people who aren't doing their job in Rotary? So funny story, guys. When I became governor in 1617, I had decided that I was going to relieve the current district treasurer, who had been treasurer of District 6380 for 14 years. 14 years. And I knew it wasn't going to go over well, because he had friends. I had nothing against the guy personally, except No one else in the district knew the district bank account numbers. No one in the district knew the district passwords because he liked to work alone. And he was operating from a very strong power base. And so I called him and I said, listen, I really appreciate all your years of service. And this year we're going to have a new treasurer come in so that another Rotarian can have the experience of being district treasurer. Is that okay with you? And what do you think he said?
Yeah.
What do you think he thought? No. I did not get invited to Christmas dinner that year. But my job as governor and your job as president, if you're coming in, is not to make everybody happy. It's to make decisions that are in the best long-term interest of the club or the district. And that's how I feel about it. Again, just my opinions. I don't speak for anybody. I don't speak for RI. I don't speak for my club. Just telling you how I think it would go best. Let's